You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322.
Buckle your seatbelt. It's time for another episode of the Prepper Recon Podcast. I've been purchasing gold and silver from JM Bullion since before they were a show sponsor because they have the lowest price of any dealer I know of. JM Bullion now offers free shipping on all orders. Check them out online today at jmbullion.com. Our individual first aid kits are now on sale. They're MOLLE-compatible pouches in Coyote, ACU, OD, or Black. They're equipped with an Israeli battle dressing, quick clot, TK4 tourniquet, suture kit, and lots of extras. It's perfect for your car, bug-out bag, or home first aid kit. Go to the PrepperRecon.com homepage and click on the IFAC store tab at the top of the page. They're on sale for $89, and that includes shipping. This kit could save your life. Today's guest is the notorious Glen Tate. Glen, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me, Mark. It's always fun to be on.
Oh, absolutely. So I guess you've heard Jimmy's not with us anymore. One of my guests told him that. Yeah. One of my guests told him that I wasn't going to pay him, even though it was an unpaid internship in the first place. Jimmy's real sensitive, and he gets upset easily. So he's not with us anymore.
You know, that guest sounds like a complete jerk. I hope you find out who that guy, or woman, I mean, male, female, I don't know who it was. It's not like it was me or anything, because that'd be weird if I did that. So anyway, yeah, I hope you find out who did that. And, boy, I wish Jimmy the best. He was a really talented intern. I can't believe that he would leave like that, but I also can't believe he wouldn't pay him. Oh, oops.
Yeah, well, maybe it's for the better, because right before he left, he mixed up my show notes for Phyllis Schlafly and James Yeager. So I'm asking Phyllis Schlafly about her time working undercover with the DEA, and the show was a complete bomb. And then another fun fact, Phyllis has never worked as a police officer, and she's also never worked security in Iraq. So
that's so weird.
Wasn't a good show at all.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe those notes got mixed up, because Phil Schlafly, strikes me as kind of a, DEA undercover, person who'd be in biker bars, buying drugs and stuff like that. I mean, I could just really see it. And so I'm kind of surprised about that mix up.
Yeah. Well, whoever the guest was that told Jimmy that I wasn't going to pay him, there's absolutely no hard feelings between me and this guest that we'll leave unnamed. And I just want you to know that if Autumn gets an email saying that she shouldn't expect any payment Friday and that you're not going to pay her, that did not come from me. So I had nothing to do with it.
No, it sounds like it probably didn't. And if it does happen, the fact that you predicted it doesn't lead me to suspect you at all.
Yeah, it's just my gift of prophecy if it happens.
Yeah.
And I can never find anybody like Autumn down here in Florida. There's just, you can't find help like that. You really struck gold with Autumn. She's probably done more to help the Prepper Recon podcast than Jimmy ever did, actually, because she set up my interview with Dave Taylor, James Yeager, and Matt Shea.
Well, it's hard to believe anyone could outdo Jimmy. I mean, you set the bar pretty high, but Autumn, for those, who may not know, is Autumn PR Girl Torres. She's on Facebook. Probably 90% of the people listening, probably are friends with her on Facebook. She's an amazing, liberty-loving activist. She's incredibly talented, communications and social media stuff, and she knows everybody. And I knew her. I shouldn't probably say this. People could start to figure out who I am. She's from Washington State, I should add. And so I knew her quite a while before I even did the books. And then when the books got big and I needed some help, it was a natural to have her help me. She's done a magnificent job, and it's spooky how many people she knows. And when something comes up, and I can just imagine, you're like, wow, we need some guests, and who are some interesting people. And she probably said, hold on. And then all of a sudden, the emails started popping in and the guests you mentioned are all great. I mean, I've listened to them on your show, so they are good guests. So anyway, Autumn is awesome, and she is the only female who has an official in real life team handle, and that's PR Girl. So we're pretty creative on our handles that we give out. So yeah, PR Girl has got a team handle.
Yeah, that's probably a hard one to remember exactly which one of the team members that is. When you say PR Girl, it's probably
yeah.
But yeah, it's creative.
Yeah.
So now, what's new in your world? Are you involved with this Summer of Survival?
No, they asked me to be part of it, and I really wanted to do it. And I had in mind that I could just hit a button on Skype and video record myself doing a discussion. The topic I was going to do was, speaking of the team, how to form a team, which people find very interesting. In the books, the team is so interesting, and they're all real life guys, and they're very similar to what I describe in the book. And so people are always kind of amazed and want to have a team of their own, which, is a pretty cool thing. And so I get asked that question a lot. How do I get a team like this? Where do I go? Where do I find people? And what do I look for? And all that other stuff. And so I was going to talk about that. But in all honesty, I just assumed that it would be easier to just type in something and record. So it's harder to do than I thought. And so I feel bad that I told the SOS people I could do something, and then it turns out I couldn't do it, and it's hard to do. I'm sure a bunch of listeners now are sending in emails or Facebook posts here's what you can use. So if they do another one, I'd love to be involved in it, because I was really impressed with the organizer and how well it was done, and there was no weirdo stuff involved. Sometimes, some of these things can be a little bit on the weirdo side, and I think they're going to be very successful. And I really want to be part of the next one if I ever get my stuff together and can figure out how to do this, because I couldn't go and hire a video production company and do a formal presentation on PowerPoint and stuff, because that's not how I operate. I just talk. And everyone, by the way, on this video would get to see me in my cheesy fake red beard, which apparently is quite a hit, if you know. And I think you've seen pictures of me in the cheesy fake red beard. So that's worth it right there. It's just to see me in a obvious fake beard.
Yeah, and I guess we'll have to use that for your headshot for this episode. So folks that are listening on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, come over to prepperrecon.com and you'll get to see Glenn with the beard, because it is the rock star beard for sure.
Yeah,
if I had a beard that cool, I'd probably just sit around and pet it all day. But
but of course it's fake with me. Yeah, so way to rub it in, way to hurt my feelings.
But hey, I guess we've got a topic for the next time you come on the Prepper Recon podcast, though, because I guess you already thought out how to form a team. Of course, you've done that, so I guess it's just kind of a no-brainer for you to talk about. So we'll get you to come back on the show and do how to form a team. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. Now, what did you think about Eric Cantor's loss in the Virginia primaries?
I absolutely love it. I think it says a lot. I know I talked to some folks, some of my friends in D.C. who are close to the situation on the good guy side, not the establishment side, and all of D.C. is talking about this. This was a huge shock. And there's one thing, and on this I can speak with authority about. There's one thing elected officials understand, and that's losing elections. And it's going to sound trite and stereotypical, but believe me, it's true. They don't care about anything else. I know everybody out there knows this. I'm telling you, I've had conversations. It's all they care about. And so when there's a loss like this, by the way, huge, stunning loss. I mean, House Majority Leader has never lost in a primary in the history of the United States. And when you spend $5.5 million and a guy spends $100,000 and beats you in a Republican district, it's a huge, huge message. And the message out there is established, and this is what the Republican office holders are talking about. these Tea Party people are serious. This base is all mad and fired up. And it is possible for establishment Republicans, very possible, to lose in primaries. And that has really got the establishment folks wigged out. They are, scrambling to figure out how they can appear to be more Tea Party-ish and all of that other stuff. I think the bigger loser even than Eric Cantor was John Boehner. Boehner is going to have a lot harder time retaining his speakership. He probably will retain it. I'm not saying there's like a coup afoot or anything, but he'll have a harder time retaining it just because a lot of the Republicans who kind of went along with some of this establishment Boehner stuff just to, get the committee assignments and get the pork and do all the stuff that, they do. They're now rethinking it because when it's cost-free, when you can follow the establishment and still get, through your primary, and of course with gerrymandering, there are only a handful of seats in this country that are really in play. I mean, almost all the seats are safe, not because of anything other than gerrymandering. When we look back at the history of this period in the United States, I think people will realize the way the seats are carved up, and so there are lots of safe Republican seats, a lot of safe Democrat seats. But anyway, when it becomes apparent that you might not get reelected because you might lose in a primary to these wild-eyed, crazy cowboy Tea Parties guys like, an economics professor, whoa, what a ruffian that, he must be, some lunatic and everything, it's really going to send a message. So now there's a cost. This is my point. Now there's a cost for establishment Republicans to go along with the establishment, which means Boehner, I think, has probably lost a lot of his control over that caucus. So good that the Tea Party, and I use that term loosely. I know there are some Tea Party groups that, are annoying, and there's others that are great. But anyway, I'll just use that generic term. It's a real shot in the arm, and it'll probably result in some better policy coming out of at least the House. I mean, at least on the margin. All that being said, the country's still done for. We cannot elect our way out of this. There are, problems that are much bigger than who won a primary in Virginia or even who the Speaker of the House is or even control of the House. We're done for as a matter of mathematics with the debt, everything you've talked about. So we're still done. But, I mean, it does feel kind of good that, the good guys got a win in, and I think that it'll have subtle effects that no one will ever really be able to see because it'll just be conversations in closed rooms in which Republicans that have primary opponents say, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, I can't go along with you on this one. So I think it's fantastic. Love it.
So, and as you mentioned, the guy that beat him, David Brat, he has a PhD in economics. Now, why would somebody in Washington need to know anything about economics? I mean, we can print money at infinity. So it seems like anything to do with economics or budgeting, it just seems like it would get in the way. I mean, unless you're planning to go on Jeopardy or something. I mean, why would you need to know that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, economics, it's not like it's a science and there's like a law of supply and demand, much like a law of gravity or anything. I mean, yeah, you can just print money and nothing bad will ever happen because I'm just kidding. I can't even keep this charade up. But yeah, you're right. I think it's fantastic that there's a economist. One I can tell, pretty clearly a free market economist. Most economists, the Keynesians, are the root of the problem. So in general, economist is not, a fuzzy term with me. It's not. I don't get a warm feeling when I know somebody's an economist. But this Brat guy. By the way, if you're going to run for office, try not to have a last name like Brat. It's not the best name to run with. And when you're outspent, 50, 500 to 1, I'm not doing the math in my head right now, and your last name is Brat and you win, that's pretty doggone huge.
But a lot of the kids that grew up with those Bratz dolls are probably getting close to voter age right now. So it could actually have like a little bit of a bump for him. You never know. I guess the last...
Bratz doll... Yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Bratz doll voters, I'm pretty sure I know, who they're voting for already. So anyway,
yeah,
it's not the PhD guy.
Probably not. You're probably right. I guess Ron Paul was the last guy we had in Washington that knew anything about economics, and boy, did he have some kooky ideas. He said we had no business in Iraq, But we proved him wrong. $3 trillion and 10 years later, and we've turned the whole country into a veritable Mayberry. Everybody in Iraq pretty much goes over to Aunt B's after church on Sunday for fried chicken and apple pie now, don't they?
Yeah, it's looking fantastic there. The mass executions, the beheadings. Some of my friends are former Iraq, they are Iraq veterans, and some of them made a lot of sacrifices, their families, and there's some injuries, and their friends died. I've had conversations with them that go along these lines. They say, what in the world was I fighting for, to just turn this place over to these animals? So one of my friends I was talking to this weekend, and he was a contractor over there for the, quote, State Department, we all know who that was. And he said that some of his, one of his friends, I should say, not some, but one of his friends is still over there, was a contractor, and they were surrounded by the IS forces, the bad guys, and it was looking pretty dicey. And did the United States take care of their people? No. His friend was rescued by the Iraqi Air Force. So you're Vladimir Putin or any other, world leader who's not friends with us, and you see the Iraqi Air Force coming to the rescue to save Americans when the Americans aren't. And I'm not suggesting we go and reinvade Iraq by any means. I'm just saying if we have people there, we need to take care of them. And the United States can't even get its stuff together to go rescue its own contractors. It's absurd. And I don't have a good answer to my friends who say, why did we go over there? Why was I over there? Why did we do all this? What about all my friends that died? What about my friends that are maimed and have real psychological challenges now? What was all that for? And if there was ever a question whether we should have an interventionist foreign policy, I think it was clearly answered. It was really answered, in the 1770s in the Federalist Papers. But if you need a more recent illustration, I think it's the fact that Baghdad now is fighting for its life to not be overrun by people that, we had in jail. For example, the leader of ISIS was in U.S. custody and I guess, got released. And I don't know. I mean, what an absolute cavalcade of failures on every single level. But it wasn't a failure for the governmental folks because they managed to get $3 trillion. And I think that's what this was all about. So it's a shameful charade.
Yeah, and on the subject of Ron Paul, he also seems to think that we'll have an economic collapse if we don't change our evil ways. What say you?
Oh, I think what it's going to take, all the bad, goofy stuff that this government does is only possible with tons and tons of money, printed and borrowed. Same thing, really. When the Fed buys bonds, printing and borrowing are the same thing. But no, it's going to take something like that. I think that's your point. You cut out a little bit. I assume you were saying that Ron Paul is basically saying it's going to take a collapse for the U.S. to change its ways. We are so far into this spending world, and obviously Republicans need to spend money to get reelected and all those things that everybody out there knows. I'm not going to turn into a generic soapbox because that's annoying, but all the things that we do in this country, like spending too much money, need to go on, and there's no way out. There's no political way. There's probably not even an economic way, but there's certainly no political way for even an enlightened federal government to stop spending this kind of money, because that would, in some ways, cause a collapse, certainly a political collapse. You would have people busting the windows at Walmart and taking stuff if their EBT cards are even cut back a little bit. So we can't change our ways. We're in this. And then foreign policy-wise, we're so dependent on foreign oil that we have to do bad things and work with bad people. And so there's no way to change ways. I mean, if there were a way to go about this differently and to fix this problem with, say, elections or something, I presume we would have done it. And the other thing that's too far gone is, I don't know, the character of the general population. I I think the fact that Obama was reelected in 2012 proves more people want free cell phones than, a functioning economy. So anyway, it's going to take a reset, I think is probably the most polite way to put it. I mean, it's going to take a reset, and then the Defense Department's going to have to not have any money to be able to go out and do some of these things. Homeland Security is going to have to not have any money, so they can't buy billions of rounds of ammunition and tanks to drive around the streets of America in, and all these other things. So you got to dry up the money source. So that's the only way to, I think, stop this stuff.
And speaking of a reset and economic collapse, you've wrote a couple of books about that, haven't you?
Yeah, there are a couple books out there.
For our new listeners and people that may be living under a rock?
Yeah, the series is called 299 Days, and it's a 10-book series. Book 8 is out now. Book 9 will be coming out in the late summer. Book 10 before probably the holidays. Not probably. It will come out before the holidays. And so they're out on paperback and Kindle. But the kind of cool thing, and one of the things I'm really, really excited about, is audiobooks. We're going to have audiobooks. We have signed an agreement with, I think, the best narrator in the world, a guy you may know, a guy named Kevin Pierce, who did your books. Tell everybody how awesome Kevin Pierce is.
Kevin Pierce is an absolute rock star. He knows the business. He's got that storyteller voice. So, you feel it's one thing to have somebody read you a book, but somebody that's got that storyteller voice. For me, my books don't come alive until Kevin's put them into audio format, because I'm an audiobook junkie, podcast junkie. So I guess that's when I'm writing a book, I'm just dictating the audiobook that's playing in my head. So I big audiobook fan, and Kevin Pierce is just the best of the best. He's got that great voice, very professional. And as an author, it's so nice to work with somebody that knows what they're doing, and especially when it's something like audiobooks that I didn't really know anything about, and to have somebody that already had had so much experience with it, it was just fantastic. So I'm really, really looking forward to that, because I just can't wait to listen to the entire 299 Days series, an audiobook. So that's I'm amped about it.
Yeah, and we had, and this is absolutely stunning to me, I cannot believe it, 212 narrators audition. And it wasn't like, an audition wasn't an email saying, hey, I'd kind of like to do this. It was sending in a 4.5-minute audio sample through the ACX thing, which is the Audible book narrator thing. Anyway, and so I had so many auditions. Oh, my goodness. So many of these narrators were fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But Kevin, and he sent one in, Kevin had an inside track, and that was, I'd listened to both of your audiobooks, which are fantastic, by the way. Highly recommend them. Listen to both of your audiobooks that Kevin narrated. And so instead of a 4-minute audition, Kevin had like a 22-hour audition or whatever it is. And I really got to see how he starts a book and he finishes it, and it was much, much better than just 4 minutes. And so, and originally it's funny because I remember, Mark, our original conversation, you said, oh, Kevin Pierce, we found out he was going to be doing audiobooks. Kevin's great. I said, yeah, he's the guy doing your books. And I said, he does a great job, but, I'm a little bit younger than he is, and he's got that seasoned storyteller voice, as I called it. And I'm not sure that's right. And you were like, okay, well, you need to do, what you think you ought to do. And then I realized this has nothing to do with me. This is a storyteller. And so it was funny because I told Kevin in an email early on, Kevin, I love your work with Mark's books, but you're a bit more of a seasoned storyteller. And he said, oh, so I'm old, right? And he was kind of kidding and everything. Well, I kind of had to eat those words because when I, called him to hire him, I said, remember that seasoned storyteller thing? Yeah. Instead of that being a bad quality, that was really a good quality. So, and he's just terrific. And you're right, he knows the business. And I was on the phone with the the Audible book guy, one of the executives or whatever who manages these things. and he was gushing about Kevin, and he told me something that I verified, actually, and that is that Kevin Pierce has done more audiobooks than anyone. He's that good. And so really, really thank you for that tip. And I may not have picked who's the guy who's clearly the best narrator for this project if you wouldn't have mentioned something. So thank you very much.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm glad I could have a small part in that, and I'll be listening to him. So, it was I was doing myself a favor, too, with that. But, yeah, absolutely. And now, did you hear about the Fort Lauderdale Police and Broward Sheriff's Department having to step in with the riots here in Fort Lauderdale over the Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, I did, and it really seemed like a dress rehearsal for things to come. And by that I mean lawlessness. And, bad guys know that the ratio of police to bad guys is very low. I mean, there are only so many police officers, in any jurisdiction. And the bad guys know that they can just overwhelm the police. And I think when they choose to do it, and that's what happened in this situation, the police very quickly are shown to be, outnumbered. And so, I don't know, this country's getting meaner and nastier, and people are more desperate. And not that the folks that did this in Fort Lauderdale were, starving and they were, doing this to get a loaf of bread or anything like that. I think they were pretty sophisticated bad guys. So this kind of stuff is going to happen more and more. I mean, what happened to those people that were involved in it? Maybe some overnight bookings, whatever. I took police from the surrounding area to get that situation under control. Well, okay, that's one thing going on Memorial Day weekend. What if you had a couple of those in Florida? What if you had a couple of those in any given county? It's so quickly be overwhelmed. I was talking to a police officer this weekend, who, by the way, was at one of the shooting classes that the team puts on, and he's a great guy, and we were talking about, so what happens when the collapse hit, and he said, I ain't going to work. I thought that short and sweet, and that was the explanation. I ain't going to work, and it's gonna be exactly as depicted in your books. And if you don't mind me saying, in my books, I've had conversations with police officers in various departments and at various levels, and with military people and all that other stuff, and that is the consensus. When stuff breaks down, we're going to take care of our families. One very specific example of that is I was speaking with a sheriff's deputy who told me that they have had a meeting about this, and that, by the way, is very common when I talk to people in military and law enforcement units. They say that they've had a meeting about this. It's usually informal. And the meeting, the conclusion of the meeting was that when stuff breaks down, they'll do their jobs as long as they can, but the moment that somebody calls for backup and no backup comes, that means it's time to go home. And that could be, now this is me talking, not my friend, but that could be 12 hours into it. It could be 24, maybe 36 hours into it. But some number of hours into it, they're going to call for backup, and there is going to be no backup. And I think they're going to go back home. And so that's what we have to look forward to. And I think Fort Lauderdale, that wasn't a collapse situation, but even in a non-collapse situation, look at how nasty that got and how quickly that went that way. So I don't know, expect more. I know that's really glib and I don't know, flippant, but I mean, that's just a taste of it. I mean, that's going to be a calm Tuesday morning compared to what's coming.
Yeah, and like you said, this was not any type of a collapse scenario. All of these folks still have their EBT cards. They still have their earned income credits. They still got their Obamacare. They still got their Obama phones and all the goodies they get for showing up to vote every 4 years. So we're bugging out. We're getting the house ready to list and heading to the Florida readout, which actually is probably an oxymoron, kind of like jumbo shrimp, but it is a more conservative area and a lower crime rate and smaller population density. So it's a move in the right direction.
Good for you. More people need to do that. People that listen to this podcast are probably concerned about their areas, and they need to do these things. Maybe even looking for a sign, and I don't know, maybe me talking right now is your sign, but people need to be in a safe place. You'll really regret it. You'll be like many of the characters in your books, that you see the heartbreak that comes from people not listening to the outside thought, if you want to call it that, that says you need to go, and the consequences are tragic. And so many people I know that have relocated, or in some cases they quit or lost their job that they thought was everything, and they end up doing way better in their new environment, and they can't believe they didn't do it earlier. And so you have to be a risk taker when the stakes are really high, and it's not, very risky. I mean, it's a little bit risky. But when the stakes are this high, I mean, you wouldn't consider moving or quitting your job, over, I don't know, Coke versus Pepsi or something in your refrigerator. I mean, that would be worth it. But you need to do this, and it's not just you. Obviously, it's your family. I mean, I'm not going to be looking at my kids, looking at my wife, and there's bad guys breaking down stuff, and you hear the glass breaking, and I'm saying, geez, I really loved watching ESPN, and I sat on the couch, and I never got around to protecting my family. And if I may say something rather controversial, I'm going to, anyway, you could edit it out, I guess, but hey, men out there, it's your job to take care of this. This is your job. It's not your job to watch ESPN. It is your job to take care of your family. And in most periods of recent history, this has not been an issue. In the 80s, when things were roaring along and things were doing great, I don't think it would be reasonable to pack up and leave and, move to Idaho or something like that. I don't know that it was necessary. Things have changed. It's necessary now. To protect your family, you need to have your family in a safer place with like-minded people. You need to. The time is now. So sorry, but I just felt compelled to say that because I get a lot of emails and a lot of Facebook messages about people with this topic, and it's weighing heavily on their heart, and they need to do it for a lot of reasons. So I'm glad you're doing it. Good for you. That's a good example for people out there.
Thanks, and thanks for putting out that clear call for the listeners too, because I think that you're right, and I think it's important, and I think it's the man's position to take that leadership role. We can look at one story in particular in the Bible of Lot, who, yep. Obviously his wife was very, very enamored with Sodom, and I wonder often if that's why he didn't bug out sooner. If there was this big debate and he couldn't get her on board, and he just decided, well, maybe it's easier to just stick it out for a little bit longer here, despite they'd had some pretty realistic warning signs telling them that it was time to go, because a few chapters earlier in Genesis, before Sodom is completely destroyed and they have to leave, his family's attacked, and his uncle has to come and bail him out, and then he still stays in the same city where he's had these really, really serious crime problems, I guess we could say. But he ends up staying, and maybe he did it for his wife, thinking, well, this is where she wants to be, and I want to be a good husband, so I'm going to stay here. But in the long run, she ended up turning into a pillar of salt. So he didn't really do his wife any good by letting her stay in Sodom, if that was the reason that they stayed.
Yeah, absolutely. I always find it interesting, by the way, that she turned into a pillar of salt because, of course, in ancient times, salt was very, very valuable and was basically like currency. So I wonder if there's some symbolism there that she basically turned into sort of the money and the wealth that maybe she was, worshiping, for lack of a better word. But, you got to do it. And, at some point, and this is really, really hard to say, but I'll say it, at some point, if your wife or husband, I mean, it goes both ways, won't leave, they are kind of abandoning you. I mean, I don't know that you're abandoning them if you take the rest of the family to a safe place. I mean, if your house is on fire and your wife refuses to leave the house, are you, quote, abandoning her by getting out of the house? No, you've got to do what you've got to do, and hopefully it doesn't come to that. But, guys, you got to think about these things. You really, really do. the only thing that's going to move a reluctant spouse, by the way, is the Holy Spirit. And so there's your ace in the hole. That's, the entity that gets things done. So remember that. But, yeah, it's a tough topic. And it's one of the things that's really different about this book series is that the main character, who's really me, has this reluctant spouse instead of, like the neighbor who's the SEAL, like Team 6 guy, and, they go off and they blow up zombies together and they high-five each other like some action movie. This is real stuff and real things to confront, like reluctant spouses. And the flip side of all this is those of you out there who have a totally on-board spouse, whether that's a husband or a wife, you don't know how lucky you are. You should seriously thank your lucky stars because you don't know how rough it is. So there you go. I should probably quit talking on this topic.
Yeah, because especially if Autumn thinks that she's not going to get paid, she might email a link to today's show to Dr. Foxy, which could really have you in having to do more Easter bunnies type stuff. So
all these are inside jokes that make sense if you know more stuff. It's not that Mark is on LSD or anything right now. Because he's not. He told me he's off that stuff.
I completely off of it. I did have to take a Benadryl before the show because I had some kind of allergic reaction. I was doing some landscaping to try to get the house sort of prepped up for the sale, and I did have to take a Benadryl, which does get me a little kooky. But I guess most of the regular listeners are used to that by now. Now, what about your neighborhood? They just raised minimum wage to $15 per hour. Are you guys building some type of utopian society up there?
Yeah, the good old city of Seattle, who has on its city council a socialist, and that's not some pejorative thing. It is the actual party affiliation. By the way, I heard this secondhand, so I don't know that this is true. So there's your disclaimer. But a member of the Washington State Legislature from Seattle, who's very liberal and is a Democrat. My friend was talking to this legislator, and the legislator was very concerned because he's going to have a socialist, an actual declared socialist, like the party, it says parentheses instead of R or D, it says parentheses S, like that kind of socialist.
Nice.
He's going to have a socialist running against him, and he's really afraid he's going to lose to a socialist. So that gives you a flavor of where the city of Seattle is. And they have come up with a $15 minimum wage. It'll be phased in over a period of time, but as you know, businesses will use that period of time to start automating and hiring fewer people. This, of course, comes with the overlay of the Obamacare 29-hour thing. So, Seattle assumes that because a lot of people in that town are multimillionaires from tech things, that, and of course they have this liberal guilt thing going on, that everybody must be doing well, and what could possibly go wrong? I've got millions of dollars in the bank. I'm not running some pizzeria like some, low-life working small business guy. And so anyway, it'll be $15 an hour. And already there's the city of SeaTac, which is the city around the airport, which had a $15 minimum wage a couple of months earlier. Already in the city of SeaTac, so this is for real, and you can look at this, and it's the perfect example of the problem here. Some of the parking garages near the airport have something's been popping up on the bills that they give to their customers, and it's called a living wage surcharge. That's right. The parking garages in a town that has a $15 an hour minimum wage are now charging a living wage surcharge. And so that's just a direct thing that's on a receipt, but we're going to see the indirect thing everywhere else. Prices, will go up in Seattle. And so it's ridiculous. I think wages ought to be higher. I really do, because with the price of everything, especially gas, and, we're now seeing meat and poultry and is at an all-time high, and gasoline's at a 6-year high. People need to make more money. Now, that doesn't mean you impose a law to do it. I mean, if you freed up the economy, employers could legitimately pay people more, and the employers who didn't pay people more would not have any employees and all this. We all know this, economics 101 stuff. So Seattle's out of its mind, and people think when I write about Seattle in the books and it's this socialist enclave, and they think I'm kind of exaggerating, or when the character in the book, who's my sister, lives in Seattle, and my sister's describing all her Seattle friends, and it almost seems like, she's on drugs or something, and it's like some weird utopian thing where everybody's nice because everybody's a socialist. People think, oh, geez, you're just exaggerating. I've lived in Seattle, and it's a lot like that, and I think we're seeing it now. So good on you, Seattle. You can be the poster child for how to destroy an economy. The cool thing politically, and that's how I think, the cool thing for politicians in Seattle is no matter what happens to the economy in Seattle, there's a million other things to blame other than a high minimum wage in Obamacare. George Bush has been out of office, 6, 7 years? I don't know. I've lost track. He's been out of office a number of years. It'll still be his fault. So anyway, yeah, it's a train wreck, and it's what happens when socialists, whether they have a D or an S by their name, run things. And in our state, it's a one-party state, Democrat Party thing. It's been going on for a long, long time. There is no competition. There is no political competition. A lot of people like me who are, I'm a libertarian, but I mean who are free market people, or even conservatives, or even, mainstream Republicans even, have completely given up. None of my friends talk about running for office because it would be like stupid and crazy. So anyway, good luck, Seattle. There's a line in Book 8 about when Seattle is basically walled off, not physically with a wall, but it's self-contained, and it's this bad place run by the Loyalists, and all around Seattle is a free area, and there's a debate in the Patriot military about whether to go in and liberate Seattle and fight a big battle and lose a bunch of people to free all the people in Seattle. And my character makes the point, why would you? I mean, they did this to themselves. They've been doing this for years. And the line my character says, and I'm really proud of this, that's why I'm telling this story. My character's talking about how, Seattle is going to implode on its own because they can't feed themselves and they're not self-reliant. My character says, you can't eat snarkiness. And that's how I feel about Seattle. You guys have done this to yourself, and your arrogance is, I'm going to do you in, and I don't owe you a thing, and just leave me alone and don't tax me. There you go. Yeah. Quite a rant, but it's well-deserved by the city of Seattle.
Yeah, snarkiness is great seasoning for conversation, but you can't make a sandwich out of it. That's right. But it's great to see the socialists coming out of the closet, because we've had them around for years and years. And just a little side note on everybody wants everybody to make more money, but if we can't get a good monetary policy out of the Fed, it doesn't matter if they're making $300 an hour. They're going to keep poking holes in your dollar and taxing you to death through the stealth tax of inflation. In the early 1900s, people made $7.50 a week and lived a decent lifestyle on that. But because we've devalued and debased the currency through quantitative easing and I think the fractional reserve banking system also has a lot to do with that. Because of things like that, it doesn't matter how much you pay people; it's never going to be enough because they're going to keep stealing it from you through the stealth tax of inflation.
Absolutely, and that'll be the thing. People in Seattle will be making $15 an hour. By the way, taxes in Seattle are atrocious, so your after-tax amount you take home is pretty small. And everything will cost more. And then what we'll need to do, just like Venezuela, we'll need to have price control. People think I'm kidding. They will attempt some manner of price controls, at least to make it look politically like they're trying to do something. And that'll come too. So, good on you, Seattle. Enjoy your socialist utopia and leave me alone.
Now, Glenn, where can folks go to keep up with everything that's going on with the 299 Days series? Announcements about the release of the audiobooks and all of that?
Yeah, the best place is Facebook, which is a terrific mechanism for, keeping people informed. And that's 299 days, parentheses, the book. That's our Facebook page. And there's our website for big announcements. We put that up, 299days.com, and those are numbers, 299days.com. Our website is pretty cool. It's got all the links to all the podcasts, including Prepper Recon. There's some good stuff there. I get a lot of good questions and a lot of good interviewers and all of that, and that's pretty exciting. But I think Facebook is the main way because it's so easy to put stuff up. It's great. We have pictures of people with, the I Miss America shirts, which is a line from 299 Days, and that message and that shirt is really taken off. I mean, you see all kinds of really cool people wearing the I Miss America shirt in various settings, and people sending pictures of them, themselves with the book, and a guy on a Coast Guard cutter, up at the North Pole, like a picture of the book at the North Pole. I mean, kind of cool stuff like that. Quite a community is built up around this book, and I'm very, very happy about that. We have 4,400 likes on Facebook, and it's really kind of a vibrant thing. So those are the best ways to keep up. Not much of a Twitter guy, I got to be honest. Not much of an Instagram guy because I'm just not, and I don't have time. I mean, that's a lot of what Autumn does. She keeps things fresh. So I highly recommend the Facebook page.
Well, Glenn, it's always a pleasure to have you on, and we'll definitely get you back on to talk about building a retreat team.
Yeah, you bet. Love to do it.
Awesome. Thanks for coming back on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mark.
American Reset, the long-awaited conclusion of the Economic Collapse Chronicles, is now available. In Book 3, the ultimate contest between liberty and tyranny reaches the apex. The Bear family and their neighbors fight to survive the fallout of the meltdown and cling to the principles in the Constitution. Will the collapse bring an oppressive regime that enslaves the American people, or will the patriots prevail and guide the country back to freedom, peace, and prosperity? Get your copy in Kindle, audio, or paperback on Amazon today.